Hi everyone, welcome to another video. So I'm actually super excited about today's video. I was messaged by Fantasy Cosmetica to ask if I'd like to receive their upcoming collection. I love Fantasy Cosmetica and I really love their concepts and their theming, so I was so happy to receive the message. I said of course. So I didn't receive everything. The form lets you pick and choose what you want, so I only picked the things that I actually thought I would get more use out of. So this is not the whole collection, but it is most of it, so thank you so much to Fantasy Cosmetica for sending this to me. Of course, I am going to give my honest feedback, so let me very quickly go over what I received. So just quickly off the bat, I also was asked if there's anything else that I'd like to receive, so I did ask for the other two palettes. So now I have all of their 9 pans except for Warlock, which I don't think I'm really that interested in. So I was also gifted Wizard and Sorcerer, which were the two that I had been planning on picking up eventually. But onto the actual collection. This collection is called the Cradled in Ice collection, and it is dragon themed, which I used to have a complete and total fixation on dragons. They were all that I would draw and they were all that I would write about. As you can see, here is the beautiful palette with the dragon guarding its eggs and the sleeve. Here is what this palette looks like. It is so pretty. The other things that I received, they are going to be releasing these multi-chrome gel flakes called Dragon Scale Multi-Chrome Gel Flakes. There's, I think, 2 shades, but I only picked one because it was just the only one I'd be interested in. Here's what it looks like. It is just a little jar, and you can kind of see the shift inside the jar. You can see this is why I'd be more interested in this one. And it comes in this box right here. The next thing that I received was, so this is not the complete brush set. I only received the brushes I thought I'd actually use. So I received almost all of the eye brushes and then just one face brush. Again, I didn't want to have an excessive number of brushes. I already have been using this. I used this today for my bronzer, which I used the Glossier one. So I'm going to be using these and I'll give my final thoughts on them at the end of the video. I have a little sheet, cute little sheet. It says that these are holochromes and there are 4. And so these are supposedly going to be a little bit holographic. So here is the first one, here is the second one. So I'll see how these perform. Here is the third one. Now, my benchmark for a good holographic shadow to this day still remains the Glam Shop ones. I compare all of the holographic shadows to that. Now, note the Glam Shop ones are very loosely pressed. You basically need to use a glitter glue. I'll also go ahead and just go over the pricing now early into the video so that you guys know the prices. And so the Cradled in Ice palette is going to be $44.99. This is a 12 pan palette. The holochrome shadows are going to be $14.99 each, and you can get all 4 for $54.99. The single gel multi-chromes are going to be $19.99 each, and you can get both for $36.99. The eye brushes range anywhere from $8.99 to $12.99 each, and the 6-pack is $59.99. The face brushes range anywhere from $19.99 to $29.99 each, and the whole pack is $86.99. So I feel like some of the prices in this collection do feel a little bit on the high side, so because of that I am going to be particularly critical. The one face brush I got is FO3. This is going to be a $24.99 brush. I do really like how even though there are a lot of blues, this half of the palette is a lot more neutral, so I think that it'll be really easy for you to create neutral looks with introducing blues if you'd like. So let me zoom in. I'm gonna do a look, or maybe 2, I don't know, we'll see, using just the palette. Okay, so I'm going to try the EO5 from Fantasy Cosmetica. I do really love the handle designs. There's a little dragon flying over the mountains, and I am going to start off with Frozen right here. This shade right here. I did use the Fenty Beauty eye primer, but I did also give it a couple minutes to kind of settle down. I had an incident recently where I overhydrated my eyelids, and then when I went in with the Fantasy Cosmetica Rogue palette, it looked so bad. So I really wanted to use the Fenty eye primer today just because I want the shimmers to be able to stick, but I did go ahead and kind of give it a little bit to kind of settle so that I don't have that same thing happen again. If my eyelids are in good shape and are properly prepared, I generally have had a really good experience with Fantasy Cosmetica's shimmers and mattes. I remember first using the Druid palette and just being so blown away by how it wore and how it applied. It was so nice. So I'm just going to use this as like a light shade. I want everything else to blend into this. And then I'm going to go into Hideaway. I kind of want to do maybe something a little bit more neutral with blue in it as opposed to blue with neutrals in it. When I first opened this palette, the selection of neutral shades in conjunction with the blues were just so well picked to me. I felt like it was just such a great way to curate a blue palette with neutrals that wasn't just warm blues with warm neutrals, which is something that like Tarte likes to do, you know? I was really excited to see these cooler leaning neutrals that aren't gray, so they're gonna work really well with these blues. The Fantasy Cosmetica matte formula is very powdery, so just be careful. I do recommend just doing the lightest, tiniest dips with your brush. You don't need to go rubbing into the pan super aggressively or anything like that for sure. Like I'm just doing like 1 to 2 tiny little taps into the pan. The one thing I will say about Fantasy Cosmetica mattes and indie mattes in general is that if you do have dry eyelids, stacking on too many mattes can dry your eyelids out, so just, you know, be prepared, hydrate your eyelids appropriately. I've started to slug my eyes at night, and that has made such a huge difference in the condition of my eyelids during the day. So just make sure you really are taking extra care to really baby your eyelids and prepare them accordingly without, you know, overhydrating them the day of so your eyeshadow doesn't break up. It's definitely a fine balance to walk. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. This is the EO2. I like how this is just such a small little brush. I'm gonna go into the shade Layer, which is down here. And I'm just kind of doing like a diagonal vertical gradient, so it's almost like I'm doing like a winged shadow. And then I'm just going to use the previous brush to blend out the edges. And I like how dark that gets. That's really nice too. I really want to try using, just because I have like more of like this neutral plum kind of outer corner going on with the blue, I really want to try using the shade Frost up here. This shade up here. So I'm going to try using this EO6, which as you can see reminds me of one of the Sigma brushes I really like. I'm always interested in seeing how indie brushes that are advertised as being good for shimmers work with the brand's own shimmers. Like that's always something that I always want to make sure, oh yeah, that picks up good on this brush. I actually think this shade is going to be better served as kind of an inner corner shade because it's a lot more translucent and bright than I anticipated, so I'm going to just kind of change gears a little bit. And I'm not using any sort of glitter adhesive right now. I find personally that while a glitter glue like the NYX glitter glue can really make these shadows just pop to like a whole nother level, you absolutely don't need it. So if you don't feel like introducing an extra step into your makeup routine, you do not have to. These look great, and of course obviously you can use a finger, you can use a foam applicator also. Okay, so I really want to try using Snuggle. I was kind of torn between the two, and now that I see that Frost is a lot brighter, I'm gonna try using Snuggle. I'm gonna start this right here in the center of my look. This shade, you can see, has a little bit more of a base to it. Yeah, that was a good shade to pick. I haven't even swatched this yet because I do not like getting my disgusting little fingers into the pans. I will be swatching this with foam tip applicators later. Generally speaking, ever since the beginning, I think Fantasy Cosmetica has definitely had the more stable and consistently good shimmer formula, and then their mattes are just almost as good. They're just a little bit more drying than Blend Bunnies. So I think Fantasy Cosmetica to me is one of my most reliable indie brands. The shipping and the customer service is also top notch. So even though they're so new, I just find that they have done a really good job at just establishing that they are reliable, they're trustworthy, you have consistently good quality. And like I said, I would be honest, so I'm really trying to look for something to critique here, and right now there's just none. I mean, we'll see how these wear obviously, but I'm going to use Layer on the lower lash line using this EO3. It is so razor thin. I really want to hug this shade against my lower lash line. I've come to realize I actually really like how my eyes look when I take a really dark eyeliner or eyeshadow and just hug it across the entire length of my lower lash line. I don't know why, but it looks really, really nice on me. I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't do that, it closes off your eyes. And also they makes my eyes look a lot sharper. It gives me a look of being more assertive than I actually am, you know what I mean? And then I am going to go ahead and switch to using a non-Fantasy Cosmetica brush just because this one is very, very dark and I don't really feel like washing it right now. So I'm just going to use the Sigma and Samantha Ravendell brush. It's another tiny brush I like using on my lower lash line. I'm going to go into the shade Adore and use Adore to blend it out a little bit. And then as I approach the front of my eye, I'm going to actually slide it under my under eye fat. That is such a pretty shade. This is the kind of neutral shade that I would love to wear for when I want to wear something pink and feminine, but I don't want it to like be like explicitly pink. This is so nice. Oh my gosh, I love Adore and Hideaway both so much. These are just such beautiful neutral shades you don't see often. I absolutely love this shade. What on earth? This is so nice. So I'm going to use this E01. Seems nice for some lower lash line work. And I'm going to go into the shade Frost, this shade here. So I already used this on the inner corner, and I'm going to use this now on the lower lash line. Okay, I don't know how much the camera cut off. I am so sorry, but I went in with the Dragon Scale Multi-Chrome Gel Flakes. As you can see, it has such a glittery effect. I put it on the lower lash line, on the inner corners. The ingredients list does not have plastic glitter. There is no plastic glitter in here, which is great. I am so happy about that. I am so sorry. I don't know how much the camera cut off because I just completely forgot to check if it was recording or not. Here is the final look, using mostly the neutral shades in this palette. For the next look, I will dive into the blues. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my makeup off camera, and then I'll be back to show you guys the finished look. Okay, so this is going to be my finished look number 1 using the palette and the gel. I really like how it turned out. I'm just wearing doe lashes. I don't know which one they are. Pretty sure it's the repellent ones, but I don't have the packaging anymore. For the rest of my face, I do really like how my makeup turned out. I decided to really pull in more like cool, almost berry tones for my blush and my lipstick, and I think that worked out really well. For bronzer, I used the Glossier Cloud Paint in Sale. I absolutely love this. It is actually really good. It makes me want to go back and get the cloud paints again, but we'll see. For my blush, I used the Suku Melting Powder Blush in the shade 103. As you can see, it is a very cool toned shade, and it's really nice. It's a nice formula. It really is a shame you can't get these anymore, but that is what I used. As you can see, I focused it mostly underneath my eyes. And then for my highlighter, I used Skywalker from Kaleidos, just a little bit of a blue toned highlighter to kind of mimic the tones on my eyes. I kind of wish I had like a blue purple one, but the only one I have from Odin's Eye would have been way too sparkly, so I just applied just a little bit of this kind of to keep it toned down. Here is what it looks like, really pretty. And then for my lips, I used a recently acquired lipstick from Lily by Red, and it's in the shade 14. It's from their new bubblegum collection. I think it's like their Bloody Liar coating tint or something like that. It's one of the dewier ones. So yeah, that is this look completed. Really like how it turned out. I'm definitely having fun so far playing with this collection. Obviously, I will continue to work with it. So far, the brushes have been a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead. You guys can admire how this looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and take photos and do another look number 2. Hello, I'm back for look number 2. So starting off with Glacial, I'm going to take this shade here, and then I want to use Nest, and then I'll use Hatchling. So I'll try and see what happens if I do that. For those who don't know, blues can sometimes be a little bit tricky for brands to make, so it's always nice to see an indie brand do really good blues. That being said, I do feel like indie matte colors have come a really long way. I used to give a lot of leeway to blues and purples, even for mainstream brands, but I'm a little bit less forgiving than I used to be. So I'm just gonna start off with this shade kind of on the outer corner. And these shadows, as I've mentioned before, since they are on the powderier side of things, I do tend to just build them up slowly, just tapping very gently into the pan. And then I will now go into Nest. We'll see how dark I can get this shade. Oh yeah, that's building up really nicely. And don't worry, I'll blend all of this out. It will get blended. I'm going to go ahead and take Hatchling now, and I'm going to use the EO2. So I've definitely done this before. I'm going to be sticking it up here. I will be interested to see how this really light pink, I'll be interested to see if this emphasizes any dry patches on my eyelids or if it can go on more smoothly. Very, very pigmented, and it's showing up even as I'm blending it out, which is good. I heard that the yellow in the Wizard palette was a little bit more sheer. I'll have to mess around with that palette and see. I was mostly excited for the Wizard palette because I really want to use that yellow as a blush, so if it is a little bit more sheer, then maybe it'll work, but if it's too drying, then it's gonna look really crusty on my cheeks, so we'll see. Really definitely showing up pigment wise. I'm really happy about that. Okay, and then I'm going to take a really just like fluffy brush, and I'm going to use Frozen now and use that to blend out the outer corner. I know I just used this shade, but if I want to blend out these blues, I was initially going to use Adore to blend it out, but I don't want it to turn too muddy, so I think this will be good. I want to make sure it stays looking blue. It's also mixing into Hatchling to create a really pretty shade of lavender. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and then I'm gonna go into more Nest and Glacial. Glacial definitely builds up to a really nice opacity, so I'm very happy with that. I'm gonna switch to just a Blend Bunny brush to use Glacial and reintroduce that really vivid blue. You see it's blending into Frozen really nicely. Yeah, that's such a nice blue gradient right there. My left eye is a little bit rough, so I'm just going to use more Frozen. I don't think I used as much Frozen on this eye than on the right eye anyways. I have some bumps on my left eye too. You can kind of see all those bumps. It really interferes with my eyeshadow blending. Okay, so I'm going to now move on to the lower lash line. That would definitely help. So for the lower lash line, I'm always nervous about putting blue on the lower lash line, but I think Nest should be fine. So I'm just going to switch to using that EO3, which is nice and narrow. Okay, and then I'm going to take that really small brush I used Hatchling on, and I'm going to blend it out with Hatchling. And then for the inner part, I'm just going to take the shade Frozen. I'm not going to take it all the way in though, because that does not look flattering on me. And then I'm going to take some Glacial. So I'm really just kind of mirroring this time, not super exciting. I'm just building it up very slowly though, because I don't want to make it go everywhere. With blue on my lower lash line, I do have to make sure I keep it pretty tight and be really careful so that I don't look like I gave myself a black eye. Okay, that's what it's looking like so far. For blues, this is really not bad. Like, I don't mind at all, especially on my right eye, which looks a lot better because my right eye doesn't have all those bumps. Okay, so next, shimmers. Kind of want to try using Crystal and Embrace. So I'm going to use my finger to use Embrace because I don't want to get fallout. This is one of the darker ones. I kind of want to just like keep this right down here. Yeah, like really just add to the smoky intensity. And leaving the eyelid bare, I definitely don't need glitter glue because the Suku eye primer can kind of grab onto it for me. Yeah, I like how that looks. And then I'm going to use a brush to go into Crystal, which I feel like there are some other shades in other palettes similar to this, but I'll see. This one definitely has more of like a thicker, flakier feeling. This shade has a little bit of a kind of creamy feeling to it, but it's not squishy by any means, which is nice. Definitely a very intense shimmer, as you can tell. I'm gonna go into more Embrace now. You do want to kind of be careful though, because I know these indie shimmers and Fantasy Cosmetica is kind of included in this, although they're definitely nowhere near as bad as other indie brands can sometimes be. You start stacking on too many layers, when you blink you'll kind of feel it. It's barely noticeable, and it is, I've had some other brands of shadows where it's like I could feel it when I blinked and it just like creased everywhere too. With Fantasy Cosmetica you can kind of feel it. It's not too bad, but just kind of be warned. I feel like the shimmer kind of got everywhere a little bit, so I kind of lost the matte and it looked a little bit like patchy almost. Like when I turn my head it kind of looks a little weird. So. Okay, and then for the lower lash line, I am going to go ahead and just use the one I haven't used yet, which is Treasure, just to make sure I cover my bases for these first two looks. I feel like all of these shimmers in this palette, there's almost kind of like it's kind of weird where like they're all so shifty that they start to almost look, they're difficult to distinguish on the eye if you use multiple because they're so shifty. I feel like they almost kind of start to read the same on the eye because they just all have so many different reflex jammed into them that they almost start to look homogeneous. I don't necessarily think that's like a good or bad thing, because they are very pretty used independently, so if you're just using a couple shades per look, I don't think you're gonna have an issue. Now I'm just gonna use Frost as my inner corner highlight on the lower lash line because it's so bright. That's the other thing, is that aside from like Frost, I don't really feel like there's an inner corner shade in this palette unless you use the pink as a matte inner corner, which let me see if I have other things I can dig into. I'm just gonna go ahead and use a different Fantasy Cosmetica palette for my inner corner highlight. I'm going to use Arcane from the Sorcerer palette. I'm definitely really excited to try the Sorcerer palette because it has such an interesting selection of contrasting colors. You like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish off this face of makeup just to kind of show you guys a look. I could definitely, for the sake of time, just end it here and be like, here's the eye look, but I do like being able to show you guys what the possibilities can be, so I'm going to do that off camera and then I will quickly go over this look number 2. Okay, this is going to be my finished look. I accidentally applied too much blush. I forgot how pigmented the Dior blushes are. But anyways, here is how everything turned out, just wearing the doe lashes again. I am actually using a blue mascara on my lower lashes. You can't really see it because of the fact that the eyeshadow is also blue, but I just kind of wanted my lower lashes to kind of be just, you know, contribute to the effect. I don't actually have a blue liner for the waterline, so I used a blue stick shadow, but it is already kind of starting to fade a little bit because it's not designed for waterline use, so it's literally just for the photos I'm going to take in a few minutes. For bronzer, I used the Hourglass Sculpture palette. I used the bronzer that is down here in this corner. I do quite like this bronzer shade. It's nice. And then for blush, I started off with the Persona Blush Multi-Stick in the shade Bubble. This is a very bright pink. I quite like it. I do really want to get the other shades if they ever go on sale or hit Ulta or something. I just don't want to pay full price for them. And then to set it and add a little bit more pink, I used the Dior Blush in 001 Pink. This is an older formulation. You can tell by the lowercase packaging. It can be quite vivid on me, so I accidentally applied a little bit too much. So I have mild clown cheeks, but I also don't really care. I did use a little bit of setting powder to kind of blend it out just a little bit. It was even worse before, but it's fine. I like it. Like, I really don't care. And then for my highlighter, I found that with how intense my eyeshadow was, I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to use Lavender Dream from Odin's Eye, which I really wish they'd restock these. I don't know why they never did, and I'm honestly quite pissed off that they never did. This is the only one I own, and I really wish I had the others, but this is what I used. And then for my nose and just kind of right in the front areas of my cheeks, I also brightened it up just a little bit with the Maybelline Master Chrome Metallic Highlighter in the shade 250. The Lavender Dream can leave a little bit of a cast if I bring it in too far, so I kind of just went over it a little bit, and I did my nose and my chin with this Maybelline highlighter right here, which this is a lovely, lovely drugstore affordable formula. I do highly recommend these. And then lastly for my lips, use the pink lip liner, and then I used the Flower Nose Strawberry Rococo Series Glowy Lip Gloss in G04 Blackberry Jam. This is from their new purple, the Violet Rococo limited edition collection extension. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sign off now, and you guys will see look number 3 in a couple seconds. Hi everyone, welcome to look number 3. So I am going to be using the holochromes that came in the collection. It is these bottom 4 right here, and I'm going to use that along with the mattes from Cradled in Ice. I am going to go ahead and start off with Adore. I really want to do a look that's maybe a little bit more neutral with like a pop of blue, and then use the holochrome. I'm thinking that's kind of what I'm feeling like. So far, I've been having a really great experience with the mattes in this palette. I really, really like them. I did have some minor staining this morning, but it's already almost gone. And it didn't stain blue, it just kind of stained a little bit pinkier, just in case you guys wanted to know about that. It's really not bad at all. I'm like thinking back to the days of like Whale Song and using Whale Song for Menagerie and how much the blues used to stain back then. If anyone remembers those days, let me know, because that was definitely a thing. There's just like that touch of rose that makes this shade so pretty. It's actually, this is a pretty unique shade, and I do really like that they put this in here. Just such a great mix of matte colors to pick from. So like it's blue, but it's not blue. I will say though, and I am going to talk more about this at the end of the video, I definitely feel like as far as signature color for Fantasy Cosmetica goes, Fantasy Cosmetica does have a lot of blue. I'm also going to go ahead and take Adore on the lower lash line. I already did this for the first look. This is just such a gorgeous lower lash line contouring shade. I am using the Fenty Beauty eye primer today. I feel like I'm kind of rediscovering and re-falling in love with the Fenty Beauty eye primer. It just is my favorite eye primer right now. I think this is gonna make for such a fun look. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and try the holochromes. I think I really want to try using this shade here. Maybe do like a little bit more of like a neutral look. My Tom Ford Cafe Rose blush arrived, so I wanted to do a look where I can use that blush. Don't ask questions. There is no saving my soul. I'm too far gone. I'm gonna take this Esom W21. I do quite like this, and I'm going to try going into the brown holochrome. Now there are shade names, and actually I really, really like this. It is just right directly on the pan. There is no sticker, it's just right there, and the font size is huge. So this is the shade Laya, and as far as I can tell, these are all kind of like generic slash common dragon names, or names that reference gods or deities or legendary mythical figures that are related to ice and snowstorms. So I'm just going to put this on with this brush. I feel like it's the same problem that I keep running into, where I just feel like the holo is so difficult to see. It just once again makes me really, really sad that I missed out on the other holographic shades that Glam Shop used to sell. I only have the 3 that they brought back. All of the other really fun colors they used to have were long ago discontinued. I don't know if they ever brought them back. I am going to take the shade Glacial right here. I really want to introduce a flash of blue. We'll see if this goes well. I feel like the blues in this palette, when you build them on top of other mattes, they are a little bit more difficult to build to full opacity, but if you just lay it down on top of bare primer, then it's going to look a lot more dramatic. Because these mattes are a little bit like more on the mattifying side of things. That's not bad, I like that. I'm really trying to not raise my eyebrows when I have to do makeup, because I've started to notice I think I'm getting forehead lines. I'm going to go into a little bit of Hideaway now. I don't actually think I should have used Hideaway. That kind of is going to make it look muddy, so I'm just going to go back into Adore. Make sure that the outside edges are blended. I also do want to blow it out just a little bit more. Yeah, I like that. That's nice. And then I am going to go ahead and take Frozen. So I'm just taking another... I do quite like using the Blend Bunny brushes. I'm going to go into Frozen here and use this. Like so. For the last look I used Hatchling up here. But now I'm just going to use this shade instead. And then I am going to go into a little bit more of Hollow Shade to blend it up into the blue. And then I really do want to try using this shade down here, this one. And this one is called Boreas. This one has a little bit more of a textured appearance to it. I think it'll be good to use on the inner corner. Yeah. I definitely don't really see the hollow in this, but the shiftiness of this is so gorgeous that I can completely overlook. I don't care if there's hollow or not, this is really pretty. Yeah, this look is a little bit clownery, but at the same time I like don't really care. At least it's not muddy, okay? Like I'd rather have the colors clash than meld together into a puddle. Okay, next I am going to, I kind of think it might help to blend into that blue matte a little bit better. So I'm going to try, and I also am just like, you know, curious. So I'm going to go into Frederick. I do at this point have a lot of layers on my eyelids, so I do kind of have to be careful now. I don't want to overdo it. Yeah, that really does help with easing the transition. And I'm just going to use my finger to blend out the edge there. Yeah, I just needed something to like go into the blue a little bit better. I think that is a slight improvement. I think I may try using a glitter glue for look number 4. I wonder if that will help with maybe making the hollow bits more visible. Okay, lastly, I'm going to take that, or well, second to lastly, I want to finish the lower lash line, so I'm going to take Frederick on the lower lash line. I'm just going to apply this pretty widely across the lash line. And then I want to go into the flakier one that I just used. I think it's called Boreas, and I'm going to use that right on the inner corners. Okay, I actually really like this. I feel like it's a little bit funky, it clashes a little bit, it's not quite like, I don't think color theory wise it really necessarily is a good idea, but I feel like it's just kind of fun. It's a little bit unusual, like I don't mind this at all, I'll be honest. I feel like it's just kind of like a little bit of something that's you don't quite see every day. I'm going to just use this Victoria Beckham eyeliner in Ash, and yeah, you can see I've sharpened it so it's a lot sharper now. I don't want to use a full black, but I do think a little bit of a defined sharp liner will help. I believe the back of the Victoria Beckham eyeliner technically has a smudger, but I never use it. But yeah, this is, I always do this to myself. I always end up making my eyeliner asymmetrical or weird somehow. Okay, so I think this is going to be look number 3 done. It's just a really fun kind of splash of color. I cannot complain, even though I don't think the inner corner highlight I think is what really kind of did me in, because I don't think that was the good choice to pick, but I feel like I was able to, on a technical level, pull off something that I've been having trouble with, even if the colors I picked may not necessarily have been right. So actually I'm really happy with how this turned out, minus the eyeliner, but I'm going to go off camera now. I'm going to finish off this face of makeup. I think I'm going to go ahead and do false lashes. I was thinking initially just doing mascara, but I feel like that might not be good enough, so we'll see. Yeah, and I was thinking of doing individuals, but I don't know, I'm too lazy. So I think I'll just do false lashes. And yeah, I'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, this is going to be the finished look number 3. Here's how it all turned out. Lots of fun. I did end up messing around with the eyeliner off camera just a little bit. You can see that I did have to elongate this side this side and I kind of tweaked this side a little bit. They're still definitely not perfectly symmetrical, but the fun thing about false lashes is they kind of can give you a lot of leeway to make the eyeliner look symmetrical without needing to like fuss around with it. So if I didn't have these false lashes on, my eyeliner would look so jarring, but eyeliner and false lashes tend to work really well together because it's almost like you're just kind of continuing the definition given by the false lashes. But yeah, I also do have some lower lash line mascara on. Not very much, just a little bit. My lower lashes are kind of pathetic, and a lot of the mascaras I currently have open are almost dried out, but I'm like trying to like, you know, use them before they fully dry before I open my new ones. For my bronzer, it actually took me a couple different bronzers and contours before I hit a shade that I liked, so I just kind of science experimented that a little bit. But for my blush, I used, first off, as I mentioned, I wanted to do this look specifically using these colors so that I could have an excuse to use the new Cafe Rose blush. I'm beyond salvation, save yourself while you can. And then I blended it out, especially on the inner part, with the Peiliee Pure Blush Sunshine Cheek in 11 Picnic Pink. You can see such a light shade, but it does actually make a huge difference to use it to blend out blush, especially on the inner part of my face. That is kind of my favorite use for these Peiliee blushes, which probably doesn't make sense for me to have the collection I do, but I've been collecting them for years at this point. So my SD card ran out of memory, so I plugged in a new SD card, but now I can't remember what I was talking about. And then for highlighter, I used two highlighters. I decided to bust out this one called You Got Mail. This is from ColourPop. This is definitely not available anymore. Honestly, I really wish I had collected more of their Super Shock highlighters in the larger plastic packaging. They're just so fun to like put all next to each other, and I don't know, I love the use experience of them. But as you can see, this one is more of a pink shade. As you can see, I've barely touched it because it's just, colored highlighters for me are definitely, I keep it around for the couple times that I'll need it. It's like, I know that it's a situational thing. I also just really loved the packaging. I'm still really bitter I missed out on the Super Shocks in this collection, I'll be honest. And then just to make sure, just for my nose and then just like in the front areas, I will lighten it up with a lighter highlighter. I've been meaning to use this highlighter more often than I do. It is Flexitarian. This is definitely kind of one of the more well-known shades in ColourPop's lineup. And then I used a pink lip liner, and then for my lipstick, you can see I did more of like a cool but not super in-your-face pink, so this is more of a cool rose, and this is the Romand Blur Fudge Tint in 07 Cool Rose Up. This is one of my favorite shades in the Blur Fudge Tint range. A cool tone shade that's not like Barbie pink or something like that, because I feel like whenever brands are like, oh, we're releasing cool tone lipsticks, it's just like freaking bright pink, or it's like gray mauve tones that make you look like you died. So I think this is really great for somebody who wants a cool tone lipstick that's not bright pink, that still could be worn on a daily basis, because you can sheer these out really well. So, but I will stop standing Romand at right this second. So yeah, that's it. That is this face of makeup. For the last look, I will go ahead and make sure I use the last holochrome that I haven't used yet. And yeah, with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed look 3, and stay tuned for look 4. You'll see that in a few seconds. Hi everyone, I'm back to do look number 4. I'm thinking about using shades from these two palettes that I also received. So I've definitely done my fair share of yellow, blue, yellow, purple before, but I can't really help myself. I kind of want to do yellow purple, so I'm gonna start off with this shade from the Wizard palette. I also am curious to see how this performs. I mean, we'll see. The swatches of this looked kind of questionable when I was watching other people's demos using this palette online, and I will say, out of all the shades that I feel like I pretty much never see like super solid formulations of, Pastel Yellow has got to take #1 crown. A True Blood Crimson Red I just can't ever seem to see, period. And then Pastel Yellow. That's the big one. If I ever can seize my hunt for that, I find a good one, I will definitely shout it from the rooftops to let you guys know. And especially with my olive undertones, it takes a really good pastel yellow to even really be visible without just like disappearing onto my eyelids. My eyelids also do have some hyperpigmentation compared to the rest of my face. With that in mind, here's how it's looking, and it's not looking too shabby. This is definitely, I think, better. Right off the bat, this is a better user experience than the Odin's Eye Spring Dragon Yellow. That one kind of let me down, I'll be honest. I feel like I can see some dry patches, but it's really not that bad. And then I'm going to jump over to Sorcerer, and I'm going to use, these are much more red pinks and red, and then the one purple that's in here is a very, very red based purple, so I'm not doing blue based purples today. So I'm thinking about using Empower here, this shade right here. So I'm going to go into Empower, and from what I hear, specifically with World of Warcraft and other similar RPGs, there are differences between the wizard and sorcery class. Now, I've not played either. I'm not an online game person at all. This shade Empower just went on like a dream. Wow, I'm shocked. And so, for those who don't remember, I had a video where I used Rogue and I had a terrible time with the eyeshadows, and they also lasted terribly and broke up on me because I overhydrated my eyelids. It was too moisturized and the shadow just literally slipped and slid around. I have learned my lesson since then. Look at how great this is. Fantasy Cosmetica has such a great reliable formula, and I think you can see here, especially with Empower, just like, wow, look at that. And it builds up. Oh, look at that opacity. Actually, I think I may go ahead and go into Cradled of Ice because I adore using these two shades for my lower lash line. Like, these are just such perfect lower lash line shades, so I'm just gonna go for that because I don't really feel like using a straight purple in my lower lash line right now. And then I'm gonna just blend that out with Adore. Yeah, I just love using this shade in particular. This is like just such a perfect contouring shade for my lower lash line. Yeah, I don't know, there's just something about it, it's just perfect. And then I will just take the tiniest little bit of Empower just to add like the color, but I didn't want to start off with this because I didn't want to like add too much and lose control. Most of the time when I do complementary colors with either orange blue or yellow purple, I tend to manipulate the orange and the yellow to be more into the orange side of yellow so that it looks better. Especially yellow purple looks so much better if the yellow is more of a yellow orange. So this is kind of the first time, at least in a while, where I've done a look that has a true yellow. So in this case it's a pastel yellow, but there's no orange or blue in it. So it's just yellow. And I'm pairing it with a red-based purple instead. This is actually my first time flipping how I treat the colors, and so even though I've done yellow and purple before, I haven't done this kind of yellow and purple, and I actually really like how it turns out. So I'm gonna try using NYX glitter glue today, and so you can see I left a nice large gap because I want to mess around a lot more with the metallics today, just all kinds of metallics. And the purple shade all on its own, blended out, no helping shades necessary, which is just insane. Like, look at that, perfect blend. I just don't even need to go back over it. Okay, so the first shade I'm going to use is going to be the shade that I haven't used yet. That is going to be Nami, which is this shade right here. Here's what it looks like. I actually, see, now I can sort of see it. And I'm just going to put this all over the center of my eyelid. I think I'm going to need a second metallic to blend between these two shades, so I'm just gonna leave that. It's gonna look abrupt and bad, but it'll be fine. I'll fix it later. That is a future me problem. This is another palette. This, I actually meant to use this months ago and it just never happened. I'm going to try using the shade Might down here. I'm just going to use this. Okay, yeah, this works because it's a little bit less blue. The other dark shades all had a lot more blue to them, so I was like, okay, that's not going to really work. That actually helps make the outer corner even deeper, so I don't mind that at all. I actually really like how that is kind of darkening Empowered. That's actually a really cool effect. And then I do kind of want to use a clean brush to blend out the edges of Empowered. Just make sure it's really diffused. Okay, I pulled it out a little bit more and I didn't ruin it. Go me. I am going to use Crystal down here. I'm going to use this on the lower lash line. I am just feeling like using something that's a little bit extra sparkly. Shift of this is going to match the shades I chose to use on the upper eyelid nicely as well. Yeah, that is really nice. And then for the inner corner shade, I actually find that none of these really are like perfect for me for the inner corner. I do prefer something that is not quite so chunky and that has a little bit of base pigment to it so that it actually like brightens the inner corner. So none of the shades in Cradled and Ice are gonna do it for me inner corner wise unless I want to use the pink as a matte inner corner. That's completely fine. I really don't mind at all. It is so easy for me to just be like, okay, I'll just use a different shade from somewhere else, or I can just even use my highlighter. I was going somewhere with this, I promise. I think I'm going to use Meteor Storm, this yellow with what looks like a blue reflect. This shade in Wizard along with Conjuration appear to have a much more kind of sparkly formula as opposed to a chunky one, and they have a more of a pigmented base. So I'm just going to keep with the yellow theme all the way up to my inner corner. I'm also going to take some of that and just kind of sprinkle it up here. This is a really, really pretty sparkly shade. Not like ultra foiled, but I quite like it actually. Okay, so that is going to be this look. This look actually took me the shortest amount of time to do compared to all the others because Empowered was like, I am just going to be the best matte purple you've ever used in your life. I am very sorry I didn't get another chance to use Corey on camera. I just realized I like completely forgot. I'm going to first finish off my phase of makeup. I'll be back to discuss the look, I'll discuss the collection, and then the swatches will all be tucked at the end. So this is a pretty lengthy video, but I wanted to give it its due, and I hope you guys are enjoying seeing these really detailed looks using all of the products to the best of my ability multiple times if I can. So I'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, so this is going to be my finished look. As you can see, I focused a lot on the red purple tones for putting together the rest of my look. For blush, I started off with the Mousse blush in the shade 01. This is, I think, Tarot or something like that. Really, really desaturated, great color. I actually really like this. The formula is really good, the color is really good. This is a very unique blush formula. And then I intensified it a little bit closer to my eyeshadow with the Love Flush watercolor blush shade called Crazy in Love. I don't use this very often, kind of reminds me of like a lighter version of Lavender Blonde, which I also didn't get. So, but in a use case like this is why I keep it around, for situations like this where I might need it. And then at the very end of it, I kind of was like, oh, I forgot. I wanted to see if I can add some yellow blush in the front. So I decided to test out using this shade here also as a blush. I really liked how it didn't dry out my eyelids too bad. So when I put it on my cheeks, it didn't really show too many dry patches. I'll have to test it out more. I stuck this on literally right after I had finished everything. So I'll have to test this out more, use more deliberately. But I think this may actually work pretty well as a blush. And if that's the case, I'm gonna have to get like a backup single of this, because if I use this as eyeshadow and blush, I'd probably run through it pretty quickly. I wanted to do more of a purple toned highlighter. You can see it's not quite as like obvious as it used to be because I had put the blush on top. So this is the only like cold purple shade blush shade in my collection right now, and it is the Lav Dreams from the ColourPop Super Shock highlighter formula. This is long since gone. I love the packaging and the presentation of this, so I'm glad that I have it. I set my face with the Kogendo Brightening Moisture Powder. No surprises there. And then for my lips, after I used lip liner, my base lip was the Lasting Water Tint in 13 Berry Violet. This is a discontinued shade. I am very, very sorry. It is a very unique shade. And then I topped it off in the middle with the Gloss 105 from the Kaleidos formula. This is a very, very sheer, grayed out, shimmery gloss, so it's really nice as a topper when I want to tone things down just a little bit, so I just stuck it on the middle of my lips. And that was it. Some setting spray to top everything off, and now it's done. I'm going to go ahead and do live swatches of the Holo Chrome singles. I think that'd be nice. I did clean my fingers really quickly, so they are actually clean for once, which is cool. So I'm going to go ahead and just use these to swatch them. I feel like the Holo, it's not super visible. I wonder if these are similar in formula to the Library collection, which I did not. I was not on the PR list at that point. I didn't ask for it, and I don't know if it's even available anymore. I don't really have any plans on getting it. But I'm going to go ahead and use the back of my left hand. So just one swipe swatches with no double swatching, no going back for a second layer. These are just one swipe swatches. I feel like as I tilt my hand to the side is where you can really see the Holo, and then from the front you're seeing the base pigmentation. So if I like rotate it to the side really, really like at an extreme angle, you can see the hollow. Now that my fingers base pigmentation is mostly gone, here's what's left of my fingers. You can see particularly with the brown shade and the blue shade that you can see that there is hollow. Like these are, to me, these read as holographic shades that are pretty, and the holographic shade is just a nice bonus. You notice it and you're like, wow, now it's even cooler, but it's pretty to begin with. I want a shade that it's like, wow, that's hollow. Everybody kind of is going to have their personal preferences. The problem with hollow shadows that have a lot of hollow in them is that when you try and blend them out and in certain lighting settings, the hollow is going to read gray. So there is definitely a balance act to strike here where you can see on my eyes, it's not super visibly hollow, but that also means that as I'm using it, manipulating it, blending it, it's very easy to use. There's no gray cast. So yeah, I think these are fine, but they're not to my taste of hollow, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're like bad or anything. So now I'm going to show you the Glam Shop hollows just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Here is my little quad where I keep my Glam Shop hollows and one Bella Beauty Bar hollow. So here's what they look like in the pan. Now, just so you guys know, the Glam Shop ones are very like loosely pressed and they can feel kind of thick. You definitely need to use some kind of glitter glue for them and be careful when applying. The formula wise, I would say the Fantasy Cosmetica ones are so easy to use. They are very smooth. They're firmly pressed enough into the pan that you're not picking up straight up powder. Like, look on my finger. Do you see the dimensionality of what I'm picking up? You can see loose flakes. You can see that it picks up in particles and chunks. It's not an easy it's not an easy formula to master, and it can be kind of a hassle if you're not the kind of person who want to use glitter glue. But if you're willing to go through it, it's really pretty. So I'm going to show you, I'll swatch it like right here. And I'm not using these as comparison points or anything because they're not really similar, but I'll just swatch them right here. And I do have to kind of like smooth it out. You can see as I put it down, I have to use my finger to really smooth it down because I just pick up so much. And none of these have plastic glitter, but I will say the Glam Shop ones do sometimes feel a little bit, you can kind of feel, it feels a little bit gritty. So you know, there's downsides to both. And then I'll put the Bella Beauty one right below everything else. Trying to not like overlap my swatches. The Bella Beauty bar one is not as gritty feeling, but it is also a little bit more loosely pressed, and because it's so dark, it's even more prone to fall out. So that's why I had to double layer that. And now you can see on my finger, the hollow on these is much more readily apparent. So how it looks on my finger is much more of how it's going to look on the eyelid. If you like apply a light layer and really do a good job smoothing it out, use your glitter glue. The Glam Shop ones are going to look like these on the eyelid. And do you see how visible that hollow is? Oh my gosh. The Bella Beauty bar one, it is visible, but again, it's kind of like you have to like hunt for it. I think it's more visible just by virtue of having the darker base. Like the darker base is like easy mode hollow. So here on my hand is the Glam Shop ones, and as I turn my hand, you can really see the hollow. Yeah, like you can kind of see, like I had to like go back and smooth it out. Now you can see the hollow as opposed to the flakes. You see like how they're a little bit tricky to use. Versus these were like so smooth and creamy, so loose. But I think you can really see the difference in the presence of the hollow. They're all pretty though, and I mean, it's gonna ultimately, I think hollow shadows very much boil down to personal preference. I will go ahead and give you guys a finger swatch of Dragon Scale Multichrome Gel Flake and Cory. Again, I only asked for one of the two shades, so I don't have both. And my other flakes in my collection are all loose flakes, so I don't really think I can do any comparisons there because I just don't really think they're comparable, because loose versus gel, people are going to want two entirely different things for entirely separate reasons. And I'm even going to go ahead and keep this in the cardboard box that it came in, just for additional like removal, just like for additional like reduced exposure to air. Okay, so here it is, just a chunk of it sitting on my finger. It is really pretty, and this is not plastic gel flakes. Like this is not ColourPop glitterily obsessed, okay? No plastic. No hard edges, no nothing like that. So that's really great. I really appreciate that. So I'll go ahead and swatch it up here so you guys can see it. I'll kind of spread it out a little bit for you guys. The flakes are also very differently sized. You can see it's still on my finger. I personally would recommend a brush for these because it's going to be easier to clean than your finger, because obviously if you use your finger, it is a sticky gel. A lot of it's gonna want to stick around on your finger and not leave. But here you go. So you can see it like has a base. You can see the base pigmentation, not very dark, but it is there. And then you flip it and you're getting that shift. Very much reminiscent of Dragon Scales. I personally would recommend a brush. I have a very diabolical idea that I'm going to torture myself with that is now floating around in my head. I'll have to fiddle around with it later. Okay, so this is going to be a clip that I'm inserting at the very end of the video, but I am filming this right after I did look number 3. But I did go ahead and I started doing arm swatches comparing all the shimmers, and because I hate having to do text edits later, I just went ahead and used a pen and wrote on my arm. If you think that I'm going to poison myself to death because I'm putting ink on my skin, you are welcome to think that. If I die by way of ballpoint pen, then I die by way of ballpoint pen. But I'm going to move aside now and kind of just like show you guys what I did. I worked hard on this, y'all, okay? I used a foam tip applicator for all of these, so hopefully this is somewhat helpful. I'm gonna move around so you guys can see, but from this angle, I like this angle because you can see the undertones. So I compared Cradled in Ice to the Wizard, Sorcerer, and Rogue palette because those are also other blue heavy palettes. I think that Snuggle and Firestorm kind of are probably the most similar undertone wise. You can see that the other 3 are very like different undertones slash base pigments. And I also am going to turn on my phone's flashlight and I'm going to try and get some like different lighting situations so that you guys can like see the shifts I'm talking about. And also any of the shades with a heart next to it, that means that that is from Cradled in Ice. Okay, so here is my arm. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just start over here first. Do you see how like the undertones are different, but the shifts kind of make it so it almost looks kind of similar? I feel like Frost, Trickster, and Arcane, Frost is from Cradled in Ice, Trickster is from Rogue, and Arcane is from Sorcerer. Next I have Snuggle and Firestorm. Firestorm is from Sorcerer. These two look kind of similar, but the finish is very different. You can see Firestorm is a little bit more of just kind of a smooth metallic. Snuggle has much more of a sparkly kind of effect. Next is kind of this bottom set of shades here, and these shades, the bottom set of shades, I compared Treasure and Crystal to Sleight of Hand, Deception, and Sneak Attack. These all 3 are from Rogue. There, you can really see here as I move my phone. Lastly, I did also compare the darkest shades, so I want you guys to see these as well. These are a little bit more different. They kind of speak for themselves. I think of them, the most similar maybe would be Embrace and Chaos, but Chaos from Sorcerer has a much warmer base. And the Graviturgy palette, the Graviturgy shade from the Wizard palette actually looks like it almost might have some flecks of hollow in it, so I'm very excited to try this. And then next I'm going to quickly do the mattes, and I will show you any similarities in the mattes. I'm going to have to use obviously a different hand for that, so I'm going to do that really quickly. Okay, I just finished doing the mattes and I'm just going to show them to you guys right here. Anything with the heart is from Cradled in Ice. The R means it's from Rogue, the W means it's from Wizard, and the S means it is from Sorcerer. You can see here, I actually think the biggest similarities are going to be in the bottom. You see the dark blue from Cradled in Ice compared to the dark blue from Wizard, but you can also see that the Wizard blue is far more saturated than the blue in Cradled in Ice. So I think overall, I thought I would find way more similarities in the mattes than I ended up finding, but actually you see here that this actually covers a really great range of blues. So I'm actually super happy with this. Yeah, I really don't have anything bad to say. As far as shades being similar or not goes, they're actually quite different, so I'm really happy with that. So again, so just one last look at the shimmers. I think the shimmers are where you're going to find the most similarities, mostly with these toppers right here, just because the toppers are so sheer. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the swatch comparisons. That's going to be it. So that's the swatch portion. So I'm going to very quickly go over my final thoughts now, or as quickly as I can. I am well aware that this video is probably going to be close to an hour long, if not an hour plus, because I'm really going over all of the ins and outs of this collection for you guys. The Cradled in Ice eyeshadow palette is going to be $44.99. I think that's a fair ask for the palette. So I was able to get a wear test on about maybe 75% of the palette, and I had no issues. Like, I didn't have even the beginnings of any creasing after 7 hours. And I'm not again, I'm not a really great benchmark for like extreme wear tests. I think you can go to like YouTubers like Heather Austin for that, who like actually like do things, or people who like have YouTube channels but are like working like physical 10 to 12 hour shift jobs. If something decides to not wear well on me, that usually means it sucks really, really bad, because if it can't even hold up on me, I couldn't imagine it holding up on anyone else. And these held up great. They look just as fresh 6 to 8 hours later, and I think that is a good indicator that it should wear pretty well on most people. So I was happy with that. My favorite primer to use with this was the Fenty Beauty Eye Primer, because the mattes blend so well. You don't really need to use a primer that increases blendability. I think you can prioritize primers that focus on like grip and wear time, and you'll be good to go, because they just blend out so nicely. The Holo Chrome shadows are going to be $14.99 each, so these are $15 singles now. Just as an aside, Glam Shop's holos might be inexpensive, but most of my viewers are from the US and Canada. You're gonna pay a lot for shipping. So when I bought the Glam Shop shadows, they ended up amounting to about $17 to $20 per shadow, because shipping from Poland just cost me that much money. So I would say as far as holochromes go, $14.99 is on the lower end for an American holographic shadow. And for somebody if you are based in the USA, you also are not going to pay as much in shipping, which makes it more affordable than even Glam Shop. So when we bump up Glam Shop's price to be similar to like $18 to $20 because of shipping. So this is from a US point of view. So if you wanted these shades, or if you're based in the USA and you like this kind of style of holo finish, I don't think you'll be disappointed, because the formula is just so nice. I think this formula is even nicer than the Bella Beauté bar one, and it is like $2 cheaper. So I think Fantasy Cosmetica did something really good formula wise. I actually was prepared to go into this video criticizing the shadows because of the price, but I actually, when I was doing more research into the price ranges of holographic shadows, especially in the USA, Fantasy Cosmetica is actually on the lower end of things, so I'm happy about that. I think it's good. And I was hearing criticisms of the Odin's Eye one being really, really like, it would stick down and it wouldn't blend. And I have no issue with these. Like, this spread out so easily. Just use my finger, even on top of glitter glue. Like, I didn't have any problems. Brush, finger, these are so easy to use. Definitely the best holographic formula I've come across. So if you're like somebody who's like an eyeshadow beginner, you're not super comfortable with like really loosely pressed or really chunky eyeshadows, or you just don't like using glitter glue, which, hey, I understand. It's another step. We don't want to have to do it all the time. Then I actually think the Fantasy Cosmetica ones will be fine. But you have to be okay with the fact that the holo is not going to scream at you. That's just how it's going to be. Next, the gel multi-chromes. These are $19.99. I feel like that's a little bit steep for a gel multi-chrome flaky eyeshadow. I feel like I've seen other indie brands have ones that are cheaper. If I had known what the formula was beforehand, like knowing that this is what it is, if I liked the second shade, or if they came out with more shades in this exact formula, now that I know, I think I would buy more. But going in thinking just generic flake sticky formula, gonna dry out in 6 months, I was like, $19.99? Seriously? But I do want to quickly tell you guys, first off, it is an extremely beautiful shade. You can see the swatches here. But second off, I just want to show you really quickly. I'm gonna hold my hand like horizontal now, so you can see where it's swatched, right? Like, I'm touching it. Like, I'm touching it really, really hard. And, okay, I bumped into the swatch below it. But look, no transfer. This sets down completely and doesn't transfer. And there are some other formulas out there that don't dry down very, like the gel just doesn't, once you've put it down, the gel needs to go away. The gel is the medium by which you can put it on without mess. You don't have to go through the hassle of making your own mixing medium. You can just use this straight away out of the pot. So it's meant to be a more convenient way to get the individual glittery, flaky effect that you want. But I want the gel to go away. And the reason I don't generally go for gel flakes, besides the fact that they can dry out really quickly, is because the gel will stick around, feel sticky, gob up. I don't even know, if you have double eyelids, I don't even understand how you begin to use most of those formulas if it's not for an Instagram photo, because I feel like it's just gonna like completely gum up in your crease. I have monolids and I don't like them. The gel goes away. And now that I know that, I would totally go and buy more of these, but I didn't know that going in. So if I had not known that going in, I would have just completely glossed over them. When I found out that these don't transfer, I was like, what? It's dry. It's completely dry. The flakes are on my skin. They're not moving unless I take them off. So I think as far as gel multi-chrome flakes go, I am super amazed. Now, I have not tried very many flakes. I've only tried maybe one or two other ones. I can't remember what brands they were. I think one of them was one of them was from the Danessa Myricks, which I know a lot of people didn't like because they were really messy. So I don't have like a huge repertoire of flakes that I've tried, but I feel like this being completely transfer proof and like just not even being sticky at all now that it's set down makes it a pretty unique offering. Next, I'm going to talk about the brushes. So the iBrush 6-pack is $59.99, which boils down to about $10 per brush, and the brushes range anywhere from $8.99 to $11.99. I think that's a completely fair price for eye brushes. I actually really like all the ones that I used. So again, I did not receive the entire brush collection. I only picked the brushes I actually knew I'd use because I just have too many brushes, and I'm trying to really upgrade my brushes and also condense my brushes down. I need to get rid of some of the brushes I don't use that are not really super good quality because I really want to invest in more BK Beauty ones first of all, and just generally make sure that my collection is a little bit less confusing. So I got these eye brushes. There are 6 available. As you can see, I just have 5. I actually really like these, and actually I will say, so my first favorite brush is this one. I love how it's a little bit more almond shaped. So it's a fluffy brush, but it tapers a little bit more than other brushes do. So especially for me with my monolids, it's really great for me to just apply color very quickly over the flatness of my eyelid. It just fits right there, especially in the outer corner. It's perfect for that kind of work. And then next, this brush here, I mostly use this brush for shimmers, but I think for shimmers it actually does work pretty good. I feel like for mattes it might be a little bit too dense, like you might put down so much you can't blend it all out, but I also think it could work really well on the lower lash line. My favorite thing about these 3 brushes, so these 3 are the most dense, stiff brushes, but here I'll show you, specifically I'll use this brush as an example. Do you see how much give it has? Just like flops over. So when I use it very precisely on my inner corner and on my lower lash line, it doesn't hurt. So my eyes are very sensitive to brushes, and I will get watery eyes if the brush is too stiff and scratchy. But this one, I can use it, like I can hold it perpendicular to my eyelid and push, and the bristles have enough give that this doesn't feel scratchy at all. So I actually really like these smaller ones because they're not painful. Even this one, this is a razor thin brush, right? And I can still use it to push product right up against my lower lash line. And then if you have small eyes or you want a detail brush, look no further. The E02, it's a tiny little baby blending brush, and I can always use more of these. So I've never run into a synthetic brush that can get to such a thin chiseled edge and not be scratchy. Usually I default to a natural brush for that, but I'm really happy that these can do the job. And I think $59.99, that boils down to about $10 a brush. That's pretty average, that's pretty standard. I think that's completely fine. Next, the face brush set. I can say very little on that because I did not get, the only face brush that I wanted of the 4 was the F03, which was advertised as being good for cream products. This is good for cream products. I do actually quite like it. I wish that this setup of brush bristle is so nice for cream products. I kind of wish that it existed in other shapes besides this, because I personally mostly use this for cream contour. It's a little bit used, it doesn't quite work for cream blush, but I love using this for my stick and cream bronzers. It just fits right here really well. So I actually really do like this for cream products. Based on the quality of this brush, I feel like, so personally I'm very picky with synthetic face brushes. Most of the time I actually prefer natural face brushes, especially for brushes I use to apply setting or finishing powder. I prefer natural brushes, because especially squirrel ones, because they just can get so much softer, and I have very dry skin that flakes easily if the synthetic brush is too scratchy. I have like 1 or 2 Laura Lee brushes that I prefer to use, and then everything else is natural. If this kind of synthetic hair is what the powder bristles are made of, it's going to be still too stiff for me powder wise. So I personally don't think I'm gonna get any of the other face brushes. It's the only one I wanted, and I think it's the only one I'm going to continue to want. So if you wanted to get brushes from this collection, honestly I'd say go for the eye brushes. I think the eye brushes are just really nice. I am a synthetic face brush snob, and I'm a face brush snob in general, so it's not going to quite clear the cut for me. But if you like the shapes and if you like synthetic face brushes, go for it. It's just that with me and my skin, I feel like my skin is so picky about the kinds of face brushes that it tolerates. So I personally am a fan of the eye brushes from this collection. Out of everything in this collection, my favorites definitely are going to be the Cradled and Ice palette. These three small brushes specifically are my favorites, and the actually the Gel Flake, because of the fact that it just like dries down so well. So yeah, I think that's it. I really do think this palette is so cool. I will say that Fantasy Cosmetica has been on quite the blue kick lately, so I'll be excited to see something different. Well, it would be tough. I feel like this would be a really hard one to pull off because you have to mix the eyeshadows in a really specific way, but like Blood Intense Crimson Reds with like a mint green, something like that, or something that is, or like a green palette that it goes more lime green. I would love to see them do colors like more centered around that. I feel like those are colors they haven't really touched on yet. So overall, thank you again, Fantasy Cosmetica, for sending this to me. Thank you for watching such a long video. I hope this helps you guys make an informed purchase. I do not have a code with Fantasy Cosmetica. I literally just got stuck on their PR list, which is a great honor. So, you know, if you make an order, feel free to tell them that I sent you. Let me know in the comments what you think of everything. I need to go get a drink of water and maybe eat some ice cream. I'm tired and thirsty. So that's it. I'll sign off now. So have a good one, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.